Technology moves very fast today. Every few months, a new discovery changes how we live and work. Most people know the names of the big companies that lead this change. However, few people know the real story of the people who chose to walk away from success. This is a story about values, safety, and a small group of rebels who changed everything. Our story begins in San Francisco. This city is the center of the modern digital world. In 2020, a company called OpenAI was already famous. They were building the future of artificial intelligence. Inside that company, two siblings were working on the most advanced systems ever created. Their names were Dario and Daniela Amodei. They were very talented and very successful. OpenAI started with a simple but beautiful goal. They wanted to create AI that would help all of humanity. It was a non-profit project at first. The engineers there were like explorers in a new land. They were not looking for money or fame. They wanted to make sure that computer intelligence would always be a force for good in our world. But as the technology grew more powerful, the atmosphere began to change. Huge companies started to offer billions of dollars in investments. With big money comes big pressure. The leaders of the company had to make a choice. Should they keep their research slow and safe, or should they move fast to beat their competitors? This created a lot of tension. Dario and Daniela felt a growing sense of worry. They saw that the focus was shifting toward making products quickly. They believed that artificial intelligence was too powerful to rush. To them, the safety of the software was more important than being the first to finish. They feared that if they moved too fast, they might lose control of what they were building. Before we continue with their difficult choice, I want to ask you a question. Where are you listening from today? Please share your location in the comments. If you enjoy discovering deep stories about the modern world and the people who shape it, please subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us tell more stories like this one every week. The disagreement inside the office became impossible to ignore. Dario and Daniela were not just employees, they were key leaders. They spent many hours in long meetings. They tried to explain why safety should come first. They argued that a powerful computer mind without a moral compass could be dangerous. But the rest of the leadership wanted to move forward with a different vision. What does safety mean for a computer program? It is not about a physical machine breaking. It is about how the program thinks. An AI learns from the internet, and the internet has many bad things on it. It has lies, hate, and dangerous ideas. If an AI is not built carefully, it will learn those bad habits and repeat them to millions of people. Dario used a simple example in his mind. He thought about a very fast car. If you build a car with a massive engine but you forget to build the brakes, that car is a disaster waiting to happen. To him, the current path of AI research was building the engine while ignoring the brakes. He could not stay silent about this danger anymore. Daniela agreed with her brother completely. She understood the human side of the problem. Technology should serve people, not hurt them. She saw that the company was becoming a commercial giant. The original dream of a quiet, careful research laboratory was fading away. The siblings realized they had to make the hardest decision of their professional lives. Many people told them they were crazy. They had high salaries, stock options, and respect in the industry. Walking away meant giving up everything. It meant leaving the most famous tech company in the world during its biggest moment. But for the Amodei siblings, their principles were worth more than a paycheck. They decided they could no longer work under those conditions. It was a cold, quiet morning when they finally decided to leave. They were not alone, though. Other engineers felt the same way. A group of 11 people gathered in secret to talk about the future. These were some of the smartest minds in the world. They were all worried about the same thing. They wanted to build a company that put safety at the center. This was the birth of a rebellion. They were leaving the giant to start something small and unknown. There was no guarantee of success. In the tech world, most new companies fail within the first year. They were taking a massive risk, but they felt a deep sense of peace. Finally, they could build technology the way they believed it should be built. The day they walked out of the OpenAI office for the last time was very emotional. They left behind friends and years of hard work. They carried only their laptops and their ideas. Behind them, the giant company continued to grow. In front of them, there was only uncertainty. But they were together, and they had a clear mission in their hearts. At first, the world did not notice. The news of their departure was small. People in Silicon Valley whispered about the rebels, but most people ignored them. They were just 11 people without an office or a product. They had to prove that their vision was possible. They had to show that safety was not a boring limitation, but a powerful feature. Starting a new company from zero is a very difficult task. The 11 had to work from their living rooms and coffee shops at first. They didn't have the massive computer power that OpenAI had. They were starting a race against a giant while they were still learning how to walk. It was a time of long nights and constant questions about the future. They needed a name for their new dream. They didn't want something that sounded like a cold machine. They wanted a name that felt human. After much discussion, they chose the word Anthropic. This word comes from the Greek language. It relates to humans and the human era. It was the perfect symbol for their goal, technology that truly understands people. The name Anthropic was a promise. It meant they would always remember the human being on the other side of the screen. Every line of code they wrote would be checked for its impact on society. But a name and a promise are not enough to build a company. They needed millions of dollars to pay for computers and electricity. This was their first big challenge. Investors usually want to hear about how much money a company will make. They want to hear about speed and market share. When Dario and Daniela talked to investors, they talked about AI alignments and safety protocols. Many investors were confused. They asked, why would users care about safety if the product is slower? It was a very difficult sell. The siblings stood their ground. They explained that in the future, people would be afraid of AI that lied or caused harm. They argued that trust would be the most valuable currency in the digital age. Slowly, they found a few people who understood. These investors saw that Anthropic was not just another tech company, it was a group with a moral soul. With the first bit of funding, they rented a modest office. It was not fancy. It was full of cables, whiteboards, and passionate people. The 11 grew to 20, then 30. They were hiring people who cared about ethics as much as they cared about coding. The culture of the company was unique. It felt like a laboratory where the scientists were also philosophers. Despite the small size of the team, they worked with incredible focus. They were trying to solve a problem that no one had solved before. How do you teach a machine to have values? Most AI models are like sponges. They soak up everything they find. Anthropic wanted to build a model that could choose what to learn and what to ignore. Every day was a struggle against the clock. Their former colleagues at OpenAI were moving very fast. The world was starting to get excited about AI assistants. Anthropic was still in the shadows, testing and building. Some employees felt the pressure to launch something quickly. But Dario reminded them of why they left. They were here to do it right, not fast. The team faced many technical failures. Sometimes the AI would become too quiet because it was afraid to say something wrong. Other times, it would still make mistakes. It was like trying to train a wild animal to be a gentle guide. They spent months looking at data and refining their methods. The struggle for quality was exhausting but necessary for their mission. During these early months, the bond between the team members became very strong. They ate meals together and discussed the future of the world. They knew they were part of something historic. They were the underdogs. They were the ones who said no to the big money of the giants to protect the future of humanity. This shared belief kept them going. They also had to deal with the loneliness of their position. Many people in the tech community thought they would fail. They were called the safety nerds who were too afraid of progress. It is hard to keep working when the world thinks you are wrong. But the Amodei siblings had a deep confidence in their vision that never wavered. Finally, after a year of silent work, they had a breakthrough. They developed a new way to train their AI. It was a secret method that would change everything. They didn't just want a smart computer. They wanted a computer with a conscience. They called this new idea constitutional AI. It was time to see if their theory actually worked in practice. To understand why Anthropic is special, we need to look at how most AI is made. Usually, engineers show the computer billions of pages from the internet. The computer learns to predict the next word in a sentence. It's like a very advanced game of fill in the blank. If it sees a million sentences about dogs, it learns what a dog is. It is a simple process. However, there is a big problem with this method. The internet is not a perfect place. It contains many things that are not true. It contains angry arguments and biased opinions. If a machine learns from everything, it will learn the bad things too. It's like a child who repeats every bad word they hear on the playground. This is the challenge of modern technology. The common way to fix this is to have human workers check the AI. Thousands of people look at the AI's answers and say, this is good or this is bad. The AI then tries to copy those human judgments. But humans are not perfect either. Humans can be tired, bored, or have their own secret biases. This method is slow and often fails. Anthropic wanted to try something much more clever. Instead of having humans check every answer, they decided to give the AI a set of rules. They called these rules a constitution. Just like a country has a constitution to guide its laws, their AI would have a constitution to guide its thoughts and its behavior. This constitution was a list of simple principles. For example, one rule said, be helpful. Another rule said, do not give dangerous advice. A third rule said, do not be racist or sexist. These sound like simple ideas, but for a computer, they are very complex. The engineers had to find a way to make the machine understand these human values. The process worked in a fascinating way. The AI would write an answer to a question. Then, it would look at its own answer and compare it to the Constitution. It would ask itself, does this answer follow the rules? If the answer was mean or untruthful, the AI would rewrite it. It was learning to supervise itself. This was a revolution. Think of it like a student who checks their own homework before giving it to the teacher. This makes the AI much safer because its behavior is based on clear principles, not just on random things it found on the internet. It was a more honest and transparent way to build intelligence. The team was very excited to see the results. They started to test the system with very difficult questions. They asked it things that usually make AI models fail or act strangely, but their model, which they named Claude, responded with a surprising level of maturity. It was polite. If it didn't know an answer, it said so. If a question was harmful, it calmly explained why it could not answer. The team focused on 3 main goals for Claude. They wanted it to be helpful, harmless, and honest. They called this the HHH framework. It became the heart of everything they did. They were not trying to build the most powerful machine in history. They were trying to build the most trustworthy machine in history. Trust was their ultimate goal. Being helpful means the AI actually solves your problem. It doesn't just give a long, confusing answer. It listens to what you need. Being harmless means it never helps someone do something wrong or dangerous. And being honest is perhaps the most important. It means the AI does not make up facts or lie to the user to look smart. As they refined Claude, they noticed something interesting. Because Claude was following these rules, its personality felt different. It didn't sound like a cold robot or a marketing tool. It sounded like a helpful and thoughtful assistant. It had a warm quality that other AI models were missing. The team realized they had created something truly unique. This wasn't just about code anymore. It was about philosophy. The engineers at Anthropic spent hours discussing what goodness means for a computer. They studied books on ethics and human rights. They wanted Claude to reflect the best parts of humanity. They were building a mirror of our highest values, rather than our darkest impulses. One of the key rules in Claude's constitution was based on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. They wanted the AI to respect the freedom and dignity of every person. By using a document that most of the world agrees on, they hoped to create an AI that was fair for everyone, no matter where they lived. They also taught Claude to admit when it was wrong. This is very rare for a computer program. Usually, if you point out a mistake, the computer gets confused. But Claude was trained to say, "I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Let me try again." This small detail made users feel much more comfortable. It felt like a real conversation. This approach also made the software easier to manage. If the AI started behaving badly, the engineers didn't have to change millions of lines of code. They could just update the constitution. It was like giving a person a better set of instructions. It made the whole system more stable and predictable for the developers and the users. While they were building this, the outside world was getting louder. Other companies were releasing AI models that were very impressive, but also very unpredictable. Some models were insulting users or giving dangerous medical advice. This only made the Anthropic team more certain. Their slow and careful path was the only way to build a future we can live with. The beauty of their secret sauce was its simplicity. By giving the machine a moral code, they solved many of the biggest problems in the field. They proved that you don't need a million humans to watch the machine if the machine knows how to watch itself. This was the moment Anthropic stopped being just a group of rebels. They were now leaders of a new movement. They showed that ethics and technology could go together. They were finally ready to share Claude with the world. But they didn't know if the world was ready for it. They didn't have the marketing budget of a giant. They only had their product and their principles. The real test was about to begin. In late 2022, the world of technology exploded. A company called OpenAI released ChatGPT. It was a global sensation. Within days, millions of people were using it. It was the fastest growing product in the history of the internet. Suddenly, everyone was talking about artificial intelligence. It was on the news, in schools, and in every office around the globe. For the team at Anthropic, this was a difficult moment. Their former company was now the most famous name on the planet. Everyone was looking at ChatGPT. It felt like the race was over and they had lost. The pressure inside the Anthropic office was very high. Should they hurry and release Claude immediately to catch up with the fame? Dario and Daniela held a meeting. They looked at their team and gave a clear message. "We are not in a race for fame," they said. "We are in a race for safety." They decided not to rush. They stayed in their office and continued to test Claude. They wanted to be sure that when they released it, it would be the best version possible. A few months later, they quietly released the first version of Claude. They didn't do a big advertising campaign. They just let a few people and companies use it. At first, it was a very small launch, but then something interesting started to happen. People who used Claude began to talk about how different it felt compared to other tools. Users noticed that Claude was much less likely to say things that were offensive or weird. It was very good at long conversations. It could read entire books and summarize them perfectly. But most importantly, people liked its personality. They said Claude felt more human, more thoughtful, and more helpful than the famous alternatives. The word started to spread. Suddenly, Anthropic was not a secret anymore. The biggest tech companies in the world noticed that a small group of researchers was building something superior. Google was the first to act. They saw that Anthropic's focus on safety was exactly what they needed. Google invested hundreds of millions of dollars into the company to help them grow. But that was only the beginning. Amazon, the biggest e-commerce and cloud company in the world, saw the potential too. They announced an even bigger partnership. They invested $4 billion into Anthropic. This was a massive moment. It proved that the safety nerds were actually building the most valuable technology in the industry. With this money, Anthropic could buy the best computers and hire more experts. They moved into a larger office, but they kept their culture the same. They still had their constitution. They still put safety first. Even with billions of dollars in the bank, the Amodei siblings stayed focused on their original mission. Success did not change their values. Claude began to grow very quickly. They released Claude 2, which was even smarter and more capable. It could help people write code, translate languages, and solve complex math problems. Businesses started using it because they trusted it. They knew that Claude wouldn't leak their secrets or give bad advice to their customers. Trust was becoming a huge business. The rivalry between OpenAI and Anthropic became the biggest story in tech. It was like a battle between two different philosophies. One side wanted to move as fast as possible to reach the future. The other side, Anthropic, wanted to make sure the future was a place where humans were safe. Both were successful, but they were taking very different paths. People started using the phrase, the Anthropic way. It meant building technology with a conscience. Other companies began to copy their safety methods. The rebels had successfully changed the entire industry. They made everyone realize that building a smart machine is easy, but building a good machine is what really matters for the world. Claude was now being used by doctors to analyze medical papers and by lawyers to check documents. Its ability to handle huge amounts of information was better than almost anything else. Because it was trained to be honest, it was very useful for professional work. Anthropic had found its place at the top of the mountain. Despite the fame, Dario and Daniela stayed humble. They rarely did flashy interviews or parties. They spent most of their time in the office with their engineers. They knew that the technology was still in its early days. They knew that as the AI became more powerful, the risks would also become much greater. They were still on guard. The story of Claude's rise is a story of patience. It shows that you don't always have to be the first to launch a product. If you build something with care and focus on quality, people will find you. In a world of noise and speed, Anthropic's quiet focus on principles became their greatest strength and their path to victory. By the end of 2023, Claude was a household name for anyone interested in the future. Anthropic had grown from 11 people in a living room to a global leader worth billions. They had proven that you can be successful without losing your soul. But the journey was not over. The future was bringing even bigger challenges to their door. Today, Anthropic is one of the most important companies in the world. They recently released Claude 3. This new version of their AI has shocked the industry. In many tests, it has performed better than any other model in existence. It shows that the team's focus on safety did not make the AI weaker. In fact, it made it smarter and more capable. Claude 3 can understand complex emotions and solve problems that were impossible just a year ago. It can look at images, read charts, and think in ways that feel very close to a human mind. But even now, if you ask it to do something harmful, it will politely say no. The Constitution is still there, guiding every single word it writes. The success of Claude 3 is a message to everyone. It proves that we do not have to choose between progress and safety. We can have both. This is a very important lesson for the future of our species. As our machines become more powerful than us, we must ensure they are guided by the best parts of our nature. Looking back at the journey of the Amodei siblings, we can see a powerful lesson about mindset. They were willing to walk away from a sure thing to pursue a better way. They were not afraid of being the minority. They believed in their idea even when the giants were laughing. This courage is what defines true leaders in any field. Their story also teaches us about the value of principles. In business and in life, it is easy to take shortcuts. It is easy to do what everyone else is doing. But the most lasting success comes from standing up for what you believe is right. Anthropic's billions of dollars are a result of their values, not an alternative to them. As we move into a world full of AI, we should remember the 11. We should remember that technology is a choice. We get to decide what kind of tools we build and how we use them. We are not just passive observers of the future, we are the creators of it. Our values will be the most important thing we build. For the people at Anthropic, the work never ends. They are already thinking about Claude 4 and beyond. They are looking for new ways to make AI even safer and more helpful. They know that the stakes are getting higher every day. But they are no longer a small group of rebels. They have a whole world of supporters behind them. Dario often says that he wants to be able to look back in 20 years and be proud of what they did. He doesn't want to just be rich or famous. He wants to know that they helped guide humanity through its most dangerous transition. This long-term thinking is rare in today's world, but it is exactly what we need right now. The story of Claude is also a story about the power of small teams. You don't need 1 million people to change the world. You just need a few people who are deeply committed to a single goal. When you have a clear mission, you can move mountains. The 11 showed us that a small group with a big heart can challenge giants. Artificial intelligence is just beginning. We are in the first chapter of a very long book. There will be many more disagreements and many more risks. But because of Anthropic, the conversation has changed. Safety is now a priority for everyone. The rebels have successfully influenced the path of history for the better. In your own life, you might face a choice between the easy path and the right path. It can be scary to stand alone. It can be hard to say no to profit or popularity. But remember this story. Remember that building something with care and honesty is always worth the risk. Your principles are your most valuable asset. Just as a machine needs a constitution, we also need rules for our own lives. We need to know what we stand for. When we have a strong internal compass, we can navigate any storm. The founders of Anthropic found their peace by following their own moral rules, and you can do the same in your journey. We hope this story has given you something to think about. The world is changing, but our human values should remain the same. Technology will get faster and smarter, but it will never replace the need for courage, honesty, and kindness. These are the things that make us human, and they are the things that will save us. Thank you for spending this time with us. Every story we share is a chance to see the world in a new way. If this journey of the Anthropic rebels moved you, please give this story a like. It helps others discover these important lessons. We are grateful to have you here as part of our community of curious minds. The story of Claude is still being written. Every time someone uses the AI to solve a problem or learn something new, the mission continues. We will be here to watch it unfold and share the next chapters with you. Until next time, stay curious, stay principled, and keep moving forward on your own path with confidence.